I want to show this, Buck. This, when you're talking, it reminded me of one of the first stories we did when we launched the show. Now it's a famous story, but it's what happened to Brett Weinstein at Evergreen College. And it was back in, I want to say 2019 that this went down. But by now, the story's well known that Brett Weinstein was a professor there, and he was shamed because they used to have one day a year, they would have black students do like a sick out just to show white students what it would be like on campus if the black students didn't show up. And then one year they said, we don't want to do that anymore. This year, we want the whites to stay home. We're coming to campus. We want no whites to be there. And Brett Weinstein said, as a professor, I'm not sure that's the same. It's like one thing if you want to say you don't want to come. It's different for you to say, hey, whites, stay home or else. So this is not so cool. And all hell broke loose on Evergreen. They treated him like he was the head of the KKK. And there's lots of clips from this terrible, terrible episode on campus. But the one that always gets me is there is a black student, because they shamed any student who didn't want to go along with this. And there was a black student who really liked Brett Weinstein. And she didn't like what they were doing to him. He was under threat. They stormed campus. The campus security told him and his wife, Heather, we can't keep you safe. You need to leave. They were like, this is for him just saying, and very gently, I don't think you should do this. Anyway, they took this young black woman, she's probably 18 years old, and shamed her in the middle of campus for the sin of not hating Brett Weinstein. And they made her read a forced apology that had clearly been written for her. And this is the clip. This is your book, again, which is called Manufactured Delusion by Buck Sexton. Look what they did to her.
Has demonstrated anti-blackness in the pigeonholing, charging, and sentencing of 2 black trans disabled students based on false racially charged allegations. Sorry.
So they publicly flogged her. Right. She couldn't even get it out. She stuttered. The words were unfamiliar to her. It was a public shaming. By the way, it was in 2017.
But this is straight out of the Chinese Cultural Revolution, where they would have these struggle sessions, which is a term that people know, but I don't think they really understand. I mean, there were students who were beating their own teachers to death on stage in front of crowds, right, to show that it's really bad to be against the revolution, and we're going to. I mean, it was horrific stuff, and there should be a much greater awareness, I think, in this country of exactly how they mobilized the youth, I might add, college students. That's interesting, isn't it? To be the vanguard of the revolution, because they tend to be very full of zeal, very full of emotion, and they don't have a lot of life experience and therefore wisdom, so they are easy to manipulate. If you're going to manufacture a delusion, it's much better to start with people who are going to be susceptible to the tactics from the get-go. But the self-denunciation, which is what that is a critical part of a menticidal process. And this has been seen, again, all totalitarian regimes do this. And people might say, oh, what? Yeah, but they also do this in cults, too. You'll see a very standard thing in cults is people, I mean, there's a whole chapter in the book, Megan, on isolation, because, of course, they have much greater control over you, and you become unmoored. You're much easier to kind of mold if you don't have family members, friends, things like this. And that's pretty standard cult stuff.
Speaking of COVID.
Yeah, of course. And, separating us, whether on your vax status. I mean, once you start to see all of this stuff and you start to look at the connective tissue between how all this stuff works, but even in the case of people who are trying to join cults, trying to find themselves, often there'll be some version of they have to confess. I know they have this and I didn't write about Scientology, so I'm not in. I don't want to get sued. But there's a thing in Scientology, right, where you basically tell somebody, like your auditor, all of your thing. There's all this stuff where it's basically, I will admit I'm horrible. I'll admit I'm terrible. And then once you're broken down, they try to rewrite the script. And the left does this all the time. I mean, there was a fascinating article
all the time.
I feel like I read this. Gosh, I don't know, over a decade ago. I can't remember the author. I think it was Freddie DeBoer was the guy's name, but he talked about how the left was just getting so insane that no one on the left was safe from anyone else on the left, and that he was at a meeting of all these, like, this is by the way, this guy's like a far left writer, but it was an interesting piece, and he was talking about how he was at this meeting and there was a Latino, like I think a Latino disabled veteran who was like really fired up about social justice. And he said, it's time for like us to man up and like really work together for the people. And a few of the women in the room were like, how dare you?
Oh boy.
How dare you?
Man up. Right.
Man up. I mean, and they were serious about it. And he was like, these people, again, they're nuts, Megan. You know, I kind of wanted the book to be like left wingers are insane and just call that the title. And here's why, and get into like
also
the roots of it. But yeah, but that would be a little. You're not a
I remember one
psychiatrist.
time on Twitter, Buck, I tweeted out something. It was some public figure. I can't remember who it was. It was a female though, and I said she needs to woman up and like whatever, be strong is basically what I was saying. And the left rained shit down on me for that too. Like that, you can't say. Well, which is it? I mean, that's actually kind of a compliment. I'm saying she should be strong, but no, you can't say that. Their word policing is all part of the control game. But explain to me why. Like, why are they constantly trying to control us?
This is critical,
and especially the weakest among us.
Sure. So this is one is that there's no greater power than power over people's minds, right? That's actually what. It doesn't matter who has the most guns or whatever. If the people wielding them will do whatever you say, you are in charge, right? So the ultimate power comes from the control of people's minds. But in the why the hyper policing of things, even like language, for example, and this comes up in Lifton's study, which I get into in Brainwashing. By the way, the Chinese didn't call it brainwashing. We call it brainwashing. They called it thought reform. And they tried to be very in their own terminology of this, Megan, because they were doing this to Chinese, right? This wasn't something they were trying to do to the external world necessarily. There were some Westerners left behind.
So you had to be smart about it. Yeah. The Chinese are smart.
They're very smart. And they called it thought reform, and they took a very scholarly approach to it. But one of the things that they would do in the artificial breakdown and deconditioning phase of the process is they would have someone write a confession. And of course, initially it starts off with, what do you, like, I didn't do anything. I mean, they had priests, they had like an Italian priest writing a confession about what doesn't matter. Write a confession. And then they would beat you down, sometimes physically, of course, they would beat you, and they would keep you in the cell. And it was, okay, and so then they realized, I'll just tell them whatever they want to hear. And then they thought, okay, well, that will be good enough. Now, by the way, you're starting to give into your captor. You're starting to have Stockholm syndrome, which, again, I talk about the origins of that, comes from a bank robbery in Sweden. But okay, I'll do whatever. I'll write the crazy thing. And you give them this thing that says, I'm the counter-revolutionary, I'm a spy, I do all the things. And they look at you and they would just tear the whole thing up and say, not sincere enough. Not sincere enough. And then you go again and again and again. And the point is, it is debasing your mental faculties, and you're showing them there's a conditioning of who is in charge. So, Megan, if you can't have a conversation about the trans community without being told, oh, I'm sorry, what about Zen? Or like, what about, you're completely flummoxed. Like, what are you talking about? And it shows you at every stage.
Yeah, you're unmoored.
Unmoored. It shows you who's in charge. And it destabilizes
and that's exactly
your
how
own
they
thinking.
Want you.
Yeah.
Yes. This is okay. We're talking to Buck Sexton. The book is Manufacturing Delusion, out today. This is reminding me of the school that we were at in New York. We were at 2 private schools in New York before we fled. And our daughter's school, and I talked about this at the time, but our daughter's school, she was only in 4th grade at the time, but there was a 10th grade girl who they put through hell, Buck. They put this girl through hell. It was a long story, which I'll tell in full someday, but the short version is this girl was accused by 2 of her classmates of saying something racially insensitive about a Halloween costume. And the school, having gotten wind of it, it was said on private time, made this girl stand in front of the entire upper school assembly and apologize to everybody for being racially insensitive. Meanwhile, she wasn't. It truly was completely blown out of proportion. It was a nothing what she said. So she did it. Then they called her back in to say it wasn't good enough. You have to racialize your apology. You have to get back up in front of the assembly and racialize the apology. Like, I, as a white girl, could never know how my insensitive comment about, by the way, the comment was about what we're not going to be for Halloween. It was something like, we're definitely not going to be a slave master and slaves. And one of the girls to whom she said it was mixed race. So now you have to get back and you have to racialize it. And only at that point did she say, I'm going to tell my parents this is happening to me. I'm not sure this is totally kosher. And the parents got involved, like, what the hell is going on? She's been publicly flogged twice for this throwaway comment. Long story short, it wound up the two girls who were sort of coming for her, claiming offense, had been so incendiary on their own social media about race. They weren't offended at all. The whole thing wound up being a Target hit job on this girl. La, 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 la. The school should have done so much better by her. But what you are saying is exactly what they put this girl through. And it's no accident they didn't call in her parents. They wanted control over this 15 or 16-year-old girl. They wanted a public self-flagellation.
Yes.
It wasn't good enough. They couldn't have an authority figure or a family member to whom she felt close step in, and they try to humiliate her again. You bend over and humiliate yourself. You do it. Fucking do it. And thank God this girl had something in her, at least at that point, that said, I'm calling my mom. And everything turned at that point. But it's making my blood boil going back through it as you spell it out, right? Like, this is an old playbook.
This is a real thing. This is a real thing, Megan. In fact, Joost Meerloo, who again he had a book called The Rape of the Mind, which has fallen completely, like no one, like it's just not something that anyone's reading, talking about. It's an incredible book. He was a psychiatrist in the Second World War. He was a prisoner of war himself, and he dealt with captured Nazis. So, I mean, you want to talk about somebody who has frontline psychiatric research against it was brainwashing before we called it that, but what was going on with members of the SS and the Gestapo and this. He wrote an incredible book. But to your point about what they did to this girl, to simplify this for anybody, what are the two pillars, according to Dr. Meerloo, of menticide? Confusion and degradation. Keep someone confused and degrade them, and then you can remold them. You can convince them of anything. In fact, he writes, one important result of this procedure is the great confusion it creates in the mind of every observer, friend or foe. In the end, no one knows how to distinguish truth from falsehood. The totalitarian, in order to break down the minds of men, first needs widespread mental chaos and verbal confusion because they paralyze his opposition. This is exact. Now, yes, you can do that with a squad of like secret police in some totalitarian hellhole, but the same process of confusion and degradation from authority figures in a different context, in a free liberal democracy or free for now, the same tactics can be used, right? So this is why I think it's so important.
Or you can start degrading high school students for nothing.
Keep them confused, keep them degraded.
Firing people for nothing, or you can just publicly humiliate them for nothing. I mean, like, it makes so much sense. You can read about it in Manufacturing Delusion, Buck Sexton's new book. International disputes, inflation, rising national debt, digital currency. There is a never-ending list of reasons gold has risen over 700% in the last 20 years. And a never-ending list of reasons smart Americans diversify a portion of their savings into precious metals with Birch Gold Group. Gold can thrive during uncertainty, which is why it is a crucial part of a balanced strategy. It gives you peace of mind given all the events that could impact the U.S. economy. See if holding gold in a tax-sheltered retirement account is right for you. Birch Gold can help you convert an existing IRA or 401k into an IRA in gold. Just text MK to the number 989898 to receive your free info kit on gold. There's no obligation, just useful information. With an A+ rating from the Better Business Bureau and tens of thousands of happy customers, consider letting Birch Gold help you diversify with gold, so you too can have peace of mind regardless of the uncertainty. Text MK to the number 989898. Thanks so much for watching. If you like what you just saw, hit the subscribe button for more clips and full episodes.